Hey there! Welcome to our overview of Unit 4 in 6th grade. This unit is about algebra. It is a little bit trickier than past units because it is less concrete. The students will be working with a lot of unknown variables and they always want to fill it in with a number. They are constantly asking, like, well, what does h equal? And sometimes it doesn't equal anything. So they're a little bit uncomfortable with it, but once we get more practice, they get much, much better. As always, there's a parent newsletter that I've sent home digitally and on paper. There's also the Grafton Atlas public portal, which goes over all of our expectations and standards that are addressed in each unit across all grade levels and subjects. Here's the vocabulary for this unit. The bottom four, factoring, substituting, simplifying, and like terms, are skills that we'll be going over in this presentation a little later. An expression is just a phrase that doesn't have an equal sign or a solution. Non-examples are equations which do have an equal sign or an inequality which has greater than, less than. Symbols and both of these have solutions that will be later on in Unit 7. Variable, coefficient, constant, and term are all parts of an expression. In this expression, 2 is the coefficient because it's the number that is with the variable. It shows multiplication. This is 2 times x. There's also technically a 1 as a coefficient here with the m squared. We just don't write it because it doesn't make a difference. 1 times anything is itself. The 5 and the 2 are constants. Those are numerical values that don't have variables with them. Their values won't change no matter what x is or no matter what m becomes. And the x and the m are the unknowns. Those are the variables. In this expression there are 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each term is broken up by plus or minus signs. If we were to simplify this expression, it would only become 3 terms because the 5 and the 2 could combine to make 3. The plus and minus signs, as well as to the second power, isn't a variable, coefficient, constant, or term. They just kind of add more meaning to the expression. In this unit, your students are acting as math translators. They're taking English and translating it into math language, or they're taking math language and translating it into an English expression. Their job is to literally translate exactly what it says. So sometimes it might say the sum of 5 and 3 is it's easy for them to do in their head. A lot of them will want to write 8, but 8 is not an expression. If it says write the expression for the sum of 5 and 3, they need to write 5 plus 3, not solve it. There are some phrases that we call turnaround phrases, and they're especially important in substitution and division, like less than or share, 6 students shared, subtracted from. If it says 3 less than 7, they must write 7, take away 3. Because if they do 3, take away 7, that's wrong. Less than is a turnaround phrase. 6 students shared 30, that means they're starting with 30 and then dividing it by 6. And subtracted from is the same as less than. These are some hint phrases. The red ones are those turnaround phrases that the kids have to be worried about. The turnaround phrases indicate that the first value comes second in the expression. So 5 added to 3 would be 3 plus 5, not 5 plus 3. We talk about how these phrases are just hint phrases, not promise phrases. Of could mean multiplication, or it could just be the word of. And could be addition, or it could just be combining 2 parts of a sentence. Here are some examples. Twice a number decreased by 5. They would do 2 times an unknown number, subtract 5. We no longer do 2xn. The x can't show multiplication anymore because it looks like another variable. So 2n means multiplication. It means 2 times n. They also can put in the belly button multiplication dot, or they can put the n in parentheses if they really want to. They are expected to take word problems and turn them into expressions. An 18-centimeter vine is planted if it grows 3 centimeters every week. They can create an expression to show how tall it will be after W weeks. So it starts off as 18 centimeters, and then every week grows 3. It's tricky for them to realize that this is multiplication and this is addition. A lot of times they just want to do 18 times 3 times W. But we practice, okay, think about in 2 weeks, how much has it grown? Only 6 centimeters. So does 18 times 3 times W show that? So it takes a lot more thinking and slowing down than they want to do, but they will get there. They also have to take an expression and make up a word problem. 3n plus 4 could be 3 bags of cookies, and then somebody gets 4 more individual cookies. Because the n is an unknown value, this is saying 3 groups of some unknown amount. 3 bags of cookies means that I have a bag with multiple cookies in there. We don't know how many. So that's good. If they said I have 3 cookies and 4 more, that wouldn't be correct because that would just be 3 plus 4. If 3n is 3 being multiplied by an unknown amount, so their problem should reflect groups. 3 bags, 3 boxes of, things like that. Another thing they have to do is create a variable and be able to explain what the variable is. We call those let statements. In band, there are 20 drums, some xylophones, and 40 more flutes than xylophones. Would be the expression x plus 40 plus 20, where 20 is the drums. And we would ask, okay, why did you put 20 in? That shows 20 drums. X is the unknown amount of xylophones, so let x equal xylophones, and then x plus 40 would be showing the flutes. That's a little tricky for them because they think at first that this means xylophones and 40. But again, just lots of practice. In this unit, we also go over the 3 properties of multiplication and addition. There are other properties, but these are the ones we use most often. They are used to help you do mental math, or just math in general, a little easier and faster. The commutative property says that you can flip 2 numbers if you're doing addition or multiplication, and it doesn't make a difference. So 5 plus 3 is 8, or you could do 3 plus 5 first. It doesn't matter if you do the 5 first or the 3 first. Same with multiplication. 2 times 5 or 5 times 2 make the same thing. We remember the commutative property by making a C with our hands and flip-flopping it back and forth. The associative property is when the groups change. Again, this is only with addition and multiplication. So here they did 3 plus 1 first to do 4 plus 4 equals 8. Or you could do 4 plus 3 first and then only have to add 1 at the end. And you would get the same answer. I talk about how it's kind of like 3 and 1 were friends at first. 4 was hanging out by himself. But then later on, 4 and 3 are friends. 1 is by itself. That is a change in groups. That's how we know it's the associative property. The distributive property is tricky. It is when you take the sum or difference of a number and you're multiplying it by something. So with variables, it would be a times parentheses b plus c. And whatever is outside of the parentheses happens to every part of the parentheses. So it would wind up being a times b plus a times c. It's tricky for them, especially to do it with numbers, because here they would say, well, I know 6 plus 5 is 11, so I know 2 times 11 is 22. But it's way easier for them to do, instead of 2 times 11, 20 plus 2, and it just shows that they really understand what they're doing with multiplication and repeatedly adding the same size groups. They should be able to give you examples like doing 5 times 45. I wouldn't want to do 5 times 45, but I could do 5 times 40 and 5 times 5 and then add those together, and that's a lot easier than doing 5 times 45. Here are ways to simplify. Like terms are what we're always aiming for. When we're doing like terms with variables, it's tricky for them to remember if it's repeated addition or repeated multiplication, but if they think about putting numbers in for those variables, it makes it a little bit easier. They know 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 4 times 4. So b plus b plus b plus b is 4 times b. They know 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 is 4 to the 4th power. So b times b times b times b is b to the 4th power. They just try and go too fast, and when they see repeated multiplication, sometimes they'll just write 4b, because they know that 4b means multiplication. So they really just have to slow down and think it through. Here, when it's only adding and subtracting, they can combine any terms that are the same. Like terms are terms that have the same variable to the same exponent. So this 4b and this b can be combined. And this plus 3 and this minus 2 can be combined. 4b plus b turns into 5b. 3 minus 2 turns into 1. 4b plus 3 plus b minus 2 becomes 5b plus 1. Here's some examples of the distributive property. 5 times 37, not that easy to do. I can do 5 times 30, 150, and 5 times 7, 35. That's way easier to add. With variables, it is tricky only because they do 6 times 9 fast, and then they forget sometimes to distribute the 6 to the second number. So if they are getting 54 minus a, I encourage them to draw what's happening in the grouping, see how many times it's happening, and literally draw it out 6 times. They'll notice that there are 6 a's in the end. For factoring expressions, they are expected to find the greatest common factor of the terms and rewrite the expression as a multiplication problem. We do that with the ladder method, just like we did with GCF and prime factorization. 15x plus 21. First, you make the ladder. You always try 2 first. 2 doesn't go into these numbers. 3 does go into both of these numbers, so you put a 3 on the outside. 3 goes into 15x 5x times. The plus symbol comes down. The 3 goes into 21 7 times. Both of these numbers are relatively prime, so the answer would be 3 times 5x plus 7. The reason they do this is because in a few years they'll be expected to factor out this expression to simplify the whole fraction. Once they get here, the 3 and the 6 can be simplified. The 6 turns into a 2, and the 3 gets canceled out because you can divide both by 3. So the final expression would be 3x minus 5 divided by 2. But that's 7th or 8th grade. An example of a problem that they might be asked is to write an expression that matches the situation and then simplify it. Taylor and Jamie are decorating paper snowmen in 2nd grade. They are best friends, so they're making them identical. They each use the same amount of buttons and 4 sequins. After Taylor hands hers in, Jamie decides her snowman needs more flair. She doubles the amount of buttons and adds 3 more sequins. How many decorations did they use? So Taylor and Jamie are decorating paper snowmen. They each use the same amount of buttons, but we don't know how many that is. B shows how many buttons they use. We don't know, we can't make it up. And 4 sequins, so also 4. Since they're both making it, we do that 2 times. There are 2 girls, they both put on the same amount. Later on, Jamie doubles her buttons, so she's added another group of the same amount of buttons, and also 3 more sequins. 2 parentheses b plus 4 close parentheses plus b plus 3 would be the expression that shows this word problem. To simplify it, they should use the distributive property here. 2 gets multiplied by the b, and 2 gets multiplied by the 4. You get 2b plus 8. The b and 3 stay the same. Now we can combine like terms. 2b and b, and 8 and 3. 2b plus b turns into 3b. 8 and 3 turns into 11. Our final answer is 3b plus 11. If this were on a classwork or test, they would expect both the first expression and the simplified expression. That is about it for Unit 4. Next is Unit 5, where we take polygons and find their area just by using our, the students get a reference sheet with all of the formulas on it, and then they're just expected to take out the variables like L for length and put in the value that the shape shows. So they might be given a triangle that has a base of 7 and a height of 4. On their reference sheet it will say the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. They need to write that formula, then write in area equals 1/2 7 times 4. Area equals 1/2 28. So the area of that triangle would be 14 inches squared, or units squared. Area is always squared. That will be a very quick unit right before February. Our next parent night will be our Unit 6 parent night, where we'll be going over Unit 6, as well as placement for next year, and that will likely happen in the beginning of March. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.